What's going on, guys? Oh my Godzilla, back here with a very exciting double figure review, guys, today from Super7 from the 1994 Godzilla movie, Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla. We have the Toho Ultimates, SpaceGodzilla, and MOGUERA figures, guys. Super stoked to be taking a look at these guys. They look gorgeous, and I cannot wait to take a deeper dive and really check these figures out. Without further ado, let's jump right in.
Oh my God!
Quickly jumping back to when this guy was still in the box, just wanted to take a peek at him. There's the 1994 MOGUERA. You can barely see his head kind of, his head's almost tucked underneath that little stripe there. Second head for the flight head, I believe. Japanese text. Pause to read, if you feel so inclined. Top of the box. Bottom of the box. Quickly check out SpaceGodzilla. Much larger box here for SpaceGodzilla. Much more effect pieces here. So there he is. A couple crystals, extra head, extra hands, and it actually looks like a hand for me is missing. I hear it shaking around somewhere in there, so it's back there, and then you can see the tail sitting in the back. Top of the box, side of the box. This is the same bio that was on the other box, so if you pause to read that one, you do not need to pause to read again. So let's bust these guys out. Alrighty, we are back here, starting off with our SpaceGodzilla figure. We're going to go ahead and do him first. First things first, I want to take a look at these crystals. They look pretty cool, very see-through, just kind of a clear plastic, nothing too crazy to them. Decent texturing and detail. We have kind of three sizes, two of each, so there's the small ones. Here's your mediums. They are solid based. And then the large size crystals are here, and they stand pretty tall, coming about, halfway up SpaceGodzilla's body. So the crystals are pretty cool. Definitely glad they included so many features. It's definitely a very nice getting special effect pieces. Getting out of the way early, guys, I just want to touch on the rest of the accessories. Obviously, with Super7, for whatever reason, they refuse to give us a articulated mouth, so they provide two heads. Here's the closed mouth head that actually comes on the figure when he's first in the packaging. The eyes look actually really great. Really good detail. Nice little shine to them also. I love his little headpiece. Looks good. The little fangs, little supplemental fangs. I like the color back here. There's like just like a slight orange clearness to them. Very good. So there's the closed mouth head. And then lots of hands, fists. One fist is on him. Here's the other fist. And these are the actual pieces that came on the figure as well in the box. So he's got the fists on there. And then he's got kind of two hands. I put one on him, kind of summoning the crystal hands is I guess what I'm going to call them. Pretty good detail. Like, detail's okay. Paint is applied fairly well and accurately. He's got nice little purple rims around his fingers. And then two open hands. Pretty similar to what we get with Godzilla. Fairly typical hands for SpaceGodzilla. With the articulated wrist piece there. So let's get into this figure. Starting at the bottom of this figure, we got to take a look at the feet and toe claws. Again, kind of that purple rim around the toe claws, which is kind of nice. Just gives them a little more transition from the darkness of SpaceGodzilla's skin into the white. The paint is applied fairly well. The majority of SpaceGodzilla, with the exception of kind of his chest and underside, is going to just be this kind of color you see here. Pretty standard. Detail is fine. Very similar to the Godzilla sculpt we have. Probably mostly a copy and paste for the structure of some of the parts of the body. This tail is extremely long, though. Moving into kind of his chest area, you got his little crotch area, which is weirdly protruding. I don't know why this sticks out so aggressively, but that's fine. Maybe it's a little more suit accurate. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I don't know that he's got this weird kangaroo pouch in the movie. But aside from that, the detail is actually pretty good. And I just ripped off his hand. But the detail is good on this. You got good kind of just detail and texture on the chest, on the abdomen area, moving up the neck. Things look very good. A lot of detail put into the sculpt of this figure. And the color certainly looks the best on his chest here. I like this purple kind of color that they have to it. Very cool. Looks very good. Definitely a fan of what they did there. Getting a better look at his face and the chest, kind of, and the top crystals here. I really, really enjoy what they did with these crystals. The color is really cool. How it's a little bit transparent in there. Really nice. How you have some of the purple, literally bleeding down into the figure. Very, very cool. We'll see if we can get a little bit better light on this. You can see that purple kind of coming through ever so slightly. Really love what they did there. Definitely looks great. And then back to, again, with the face. This is the open mouth face, obviously. Again, one more time, I will reiterate, I do not know why Super7 is so against just making an articulated mouth. But whatever. It seems like it'd be easier to give this a jaw hinge than to literally print two heads. But I digress. Anyways, moving in, so back to the head. Again, the eyes, really cool. Nice shine to them. Looks really good. You got the little glimmer in the eye. His little head piece, it looks really good. Spinning him around, we take a look at these crystals on his back. I seem to have a little something stuck inside of my crystal there on the back going. But really cool, totally translucent, fading into this really nice purple as you get closer to his body, which really looks good. It kind of fades back into this color, but it blends the crystals really, really, really well. Moving down the whole tail, I'm actually going to remove the tail because it refuses to stay on anyways. I gotta take the hairdryer to this thing or something because this is impossible to get. Mine is very stubborn. But again, good looking underside of the tail and nice coloration. I like how the purple and the green kind of, or the greenish black, or color blend together really nice. Again, the crystals have that really nice purple effect to them all the way down the tail. And you get to the very cool end of the tail. This piece here looks great again. Really good detailing on it. I just really enjoy what they did. SpaceGodzilla's design for me is just so good. Also, I love how it's just like, literally just like an evil take on Godzilla. Super cool design, and they definitely nailed it with this figure and all the way down to the base of the tail. As far as articulation goes, I kept the tail detached because it's going to give me the best opportunity to showcase the articulation. So not a ton. The Super 7 doesn't go totally flexible in the side to side, but you get enough to get the GGS to make it posable, definitely. So decent movement on the tail there. I got to work on this base piece though because it has just been a nightmare to attach and reattach. I even took the hairdryer to it, and it was good. It seemed like it was locked in, and then it just popped right off as soon as I picked them up. So definitely a very stubborn tail piece here, but I still do recommend the hairdryer method overall. But good articulation on the tail. Moving into the figure himself, a little bit of point and flex on that foot. The foot will not rotate though. No rotation, just the pointing kind of inflexing on there. The shin, you do get rotation for whatever reason. If you want to break his leg backwards, you can do that. And then in terms of the bending of the knee, not a ton, but you can get enough posability again out of it to make the figure do what you need to do within reason normally. In terms of the leg at the thigh, you probably could force it and get it through to 360, but comfortably, that's about what you're getting out of it. So there is that. At the torso, he does get some spin. Not a ton, though. About there is going to be where you're limited. No ab crunch, though. No ab crunch on there. Interestingly enough, this figure is a mix of like a hard vinyl and kind of a rubber almost. You can see this rubbery piece here is very rubbery. The area around the crystals to allow for better articulation is totally rubbery. So that's just an interesting note that it kind of blends a mix between different materials. So moving up the figure, getting into those arms. Again, they are going to be kind of limited because of the shoulder crystals going to make the articulation. But, you know, comfortably without bending the figure too much. There to back on the shoulder rotation. And then in terms of outside, again, he's pretty limited by his shoulder crystals. So that's about all you can get out of him on the sideways motion. At the elbow, he will get some bend. Straight. These joints are very stiff, and you pop off the hands are very willing to jump right off the figure. The forearm will rotate, and then obviously plugging those hands in. The hands are all individually articulated to be able to pose pretty well. So you can get some good movement out of the hands on the SpaceGodzilla figure. Moving in to the head at the neck base piece, you can get about that much rotation comfortably out of him. A little bit of up and down. This next joint right at the head, easy 360. The head does, and obviously the head does pop off to replace if you want to put the closed mouth head on there. Or as we'll see, I will showcase at the very end of the video the effect heads there, but we'll take a look at those toward the very end of the video. So there is the articulation on the big man. Transitioning into the MOGUERA portion of this video, I will go ahead and start by showing the two right next to each other one more time. Again, I can't quite remember how tall these guys are supposed to stand up. I have a feeling MOGUERA is probably supposed to be a little shorter than this, but sizing totally works for me. I'm not picky about it. I like them to be a little more even. Totally works for me. There is the sizing, and let's move into MOGUERA. So here he is, MOGUERA, the Japanese Defense Forces weapon of choice here. Going to be a pretty good figure overall. These side pieces do not love to stay in, but that is okay. Starting at the very bottom of the figure, as we usually do with detail and sculpt and whatnot. Looks good. So these are kind of his treads. Obviously no actual tread action in them. Bottom of the feet are going to be done up pretty well, though. Good color. I love this bright, shiny metal silver. Nice kind of more gunmetal color there. The blue pops out really well. Detail all the way up the leg, kind of moving up these other pieces. He's got a little buzzsaws on the back, cool little jet burner thing with some of that gunmetal brown or whatever color you want to call it in there. Definitely looks good. Again, these side pieces pop out like crazy, but that's not the end of the world. Nice little buzzsaw on the back. Detail looks really nice on that. You got detail coming through all these pieces here. Very nice. Blue rims on the shoulder. The kind of corded area where the elbow would be. This area. The hands with his little weapons. They do open up, showcasing his little phaser gun, whatever the name for that is. I don't know the exact name, but good detail there. Moving up the head of this figure, it looks really good. I love those orangey yellow eyes popping out. The kind of almost dark blue tint they have to the nose drill, and then the red and blue little details up on the top of his little headpiece here. All look great. I'm definitely a fan of this. It's about time I got into my collection a really good version of MOGUERA. The Bandai Movie Monster series are great, but something at this level is definitely much appreciated. Definitely glad to have this guy in the collection, and his detail is very, very good. So the reason these side pieces keep popping out so easily is because you're intended to take them off and replace them with these kind of winged pieces for his flight mode. So there's those guys. And then also, you go ahead and you pop off the head, and you add this head. This is his flight mode. Head's going to be very similar. Biggest L this figure has is he did not come with a flight stand. I think it'd be so cool to be able to pose him like this on the shelves. That would be very amazing to be able to pose this guy like this on the shelves. I think that would just look phenomenal. But no flight stand, so you either got to just pose him like that or pose him in the standing position with these pieces, or just you save the flight pieces for when you feel like checking them out. That's, I guess, what I'm going to end up doing. Just keep this kind of more standard version of the figure in effect, and just bust out the flight poses for the review, basically. But definitely cool to have that aspect to them. You can also buy a third-party stand. I'm sure those are readily available. I've seen tons of people get them. You just probably need to get a clip stand, with the U-shaped piece, and tighten it around his waist. He's got some weight to him, though, and he's very bottom heavy, so you'd have to get a pretty darn strong stand, which is, my guess is that, and them being cheap and lazy, is the reason that a flight stand was not included with this figure to start with. How does MOGUERA hold up in the articulation department? Again, this figure, like SpaceGodzilla, has an interesting mix of kind of more plasticky pieces and then rubber. Like his whole little, whatever you want to call this, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it his skirt. I'm just leaving that off for now. But this whole thing is rubber. This whole piece right here is rubber. All rubber in here. But the legs articulate pretty well. Good range of motion on the legs. No knee bend, though. We do get a tiny bit of a little bit of foot bend. No foot rotation. You can do leg rotation, though, on this guy. His little tail thing spins 360 very easily, but has no other articulation, so that's an interesting call. I assumed that would have some movement, just, in terms of posing him for flight, but no such luck there. At the chest, we do get 360 there. No ab crunch again, though, interestingly enough. The arms, full range of motion up to the top. Again, these pieces are rubbery, and actually you can pop them right off, which is interesting. And they just have little joint pieces that stick in to holes on his arms. So that's an interesting call. But those are more rubbery pieces. But there's your shoulder articulation there. And then the arm does get 360 this way. Something very interesting. And then obviously this piece will spin and then open up articulation-wise there, if you count that as a point of articulation. But interestingly enough, there is no elbow articulation. That's kind of an interesting, I don't know why they did that. At least there's no elbow articulation that I could do without feeling like I'm going to break the figure. So I don't think this guy's got elbow articulation. Let me know in the comments if I am incorrect there, though. In terms of the headpiece will rotate 360 and has good range of motion up and down. And then you can also, if you want to, there's a little bit of articulation on this other piece, because if you remember, this whole piece comes off. And obviously, if you put this head on there, this guy would spin 360 as well. But there's no articulation on the flight head, so he's stuck just looking straight ahead. So I definitely prefer this head. It's got good tilt. It's got good posability. I really enjoy the standard head on this MOGUERA figure. Last thing I wanted to do before we jump into some size comparisons is just take a look at these guys with their quote-unquote exclusive, the Corona Beam and the Plasma Laser Cannon from MOGUERA. These pieces, I already showed them what came in this box here, and the only way to get them annoyingly enough, cash grab style, was to buy both of them together from Super7. I'm sure maybe Big Bad Toy Store will have buy them also and sell them with this piece, but supposedly the only way that Super7 acted like you could get these pieces was to buy both figures at the same time, and then that would trigger this piece being added for free, I guess. But it's definitely annoying that they just didn't come with the effect pieces. I'm not sure why these companies are so hell-bent on never including accessories, like, effect beams type things. But taking a quick peek at the two of them, here is MOGUERA. Looks really great. It's really cool how they're not just, these nice yellow kind of translucent pieces, but there's like explosions kind of happening at the eyes too. Really, really cool. Definitely think it's great. I guess the head's coming right off, so we'll take a look at it this way. Definitely looks very nice. I'm glad that they included this, even though you had to, I was planning on buying them both anyways, so it was no real big deal for me. But if somebody just wanted SpaceGodzilla or just wanted MOGUERA, then you're out of luck for these effect pieces. Take a look at SpaceGodzilla. It's really cool. Nice kind of dark yellow-orange beam kind of interweaving with itself. And then he actually comes, it's really cool because his headpiece gets energized as well. Has these little wispies coming off of it. Of course, one of them fell off. I guess they're very sensitive. I'll have to glue it back on. It went up here. But it fell off when I was, you have to apply so much pressure to get these joints to snap on. It just, I didn't like how I was holding his head, and I accidentally bopped it and it fell right off. But really cool to get these effect pieces. I think they look very, very nice. Alrighty, guys, I have a ton of figures stacked up around me for size comparisons. Jumping in, I wanted to start off with just a Super7 size comparison. Godzilla, obviously going to be very similar in height to SpaceGodzilla. Looks fine next to MOGUERA, because I do believe SpaceGodzilla was basically molded more or less from this Godzilla. So there's how Godzilla Super7 is going to stack up. The 8-inch Bandai SpaceGodzilla is actually going to stand taller than our Super7 SpaceGodzilla, interestingly enough. So there's that, but I guess that makes sense because these Super7s are kind of more or less scaled in a 7-inch size scaling, whereas the Bandai 8-inch, obviously, is an 8-inch. The 8-inch scale Godzilla is actually going to be very close to even in height with our two figures here, this being the 8-inch Bandai Godzilla from Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla. Here is the 8-inch scale MOGUERA, which stands pretty, actually smaller than our MOGUERA, and I think that the Bandai line was a little closer to, they scaled things a little better back then in the 8-inch scale, so, SpaceGodzilla was taller than Godzilla, who was taller than MOGUERA. Briefly, just wanted to show the SH Monster Arts SpaceGodzilla next to these two. And then lastly, just want to do a movie monster series. This is the brand new kind of retro color SpaceGodzilla figure they did. But that's how they'd scale up against your average 6-inch scale movie monster series figure. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, this has been our Super7 Toho Ultimates SpaceGodzilla and MOGUERA double review. Let me know your thoughts on these two figures in the comments section below. Definitely a fan of them. Once again, Super7, their downsides being these figures were announced forever and a half ago. They take forever to do. Super7, for the most part, does order, makes these figures like to order, so they don't overproduce them. So they take the orders, then they make the figures. So it takes a while for any Super7 release to get to you, which is a little bit of a downside, but that's okay. They are here now, and I'm definitely enjoying having them. They're going to look great on the shelf together. Again, another downside being that the effect pieces did come separately. You had to buy you had to buy both to get the effect pieces, so not everyone's going to end up with the effect pieces. They didn't want to spend whatever it came out to. I think close to $200 or something after shipping to get both these two figures. And Super7s, I think these are like 85 bucks. I paid for them so long ago, I don't even remember, but I'm definitely glad I got them. They look great. They're going to look good up on the shelf. They're huge. They're definitely looking nice. The Super7 Toho Ultimates collection is getting bigger every release, and it's definitely cool to see that keep growing, and Super7 doing a great job with these guys, while also still pumping out 1.5 zillion reaction figures, which I admittedly have kind of stopped collecting, but definitely a fan of these two figures. So once again, let me know your thoughts on these two figures in the comment section below, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you in the next one.